best footballers of all time, Messi. Obviously, he had a lot of problems with, I guess, physical development, and he was on steroids, several medicines, in order to actually grow to a decent size. I was regarded as a really, really, really good player, just never had the size. Like, I was a twig. I was really, really small. When I go to the gym and get stronger or whatever, get faster, you know, those are all things that you should be focused on anyways. So I didn't know that I would ever grow.
You had a good, you were talking about, and I think, it's surprising in Switzerland what I want to touch on a little bit, but in the States, I mean, I think it's growing now since the game is growing and more European talent from players and coaches is coming in. But you talked about, that you didn't have the size.
Right.
So, for listeners watching, just to give them some practical advice, if you don't have the size and you are a late bloomer, what kind of advice would you give them to work on? What type of things would you tell them to hone in on? Because like we talked about from the very beginning of the conversation, you can only control what you can control. And you can't control your height. Yeah, you can control your weight, but in terms of height, you can't really control it. So what would your advice be, to work on if you don't have the size?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is quite evident. One of the best footballers of all time, Messi. Obviously, he had a lot of problems with his, I guess, physical development, and he was on steroids, several medicines, and different types of therapies in order to actually grow to a decent size. So, I mean, look, you could already tell, like, for whomever's, I guess, a Messi follower, someone even who's not even just an admirer, someone that just follows football in general, knows that the talent was always there. Yeah, he was from the time he touched the football, he was that player. Yeah. It's just he didn't have that physical tool to, I guess, kind of excel in the sport. But in reality, I mean, look what he's done. I mean, it's like, I mean, the rest speaks for itself. So, I mean, in reality, I mean, I wouldn't want to tell anybody to, oh, hey, go to the gym and get strong or whatever, get faster. Those are all things that you should be focused on anyways. And I don't think that's something that you should specifically do if you don't think that you're going to grow. So for my personal self, I didn't know during that time that I would ever grow. So I just thought that I was just going to be either around this size. And basically what happened for me was that, I just kept getting better. Like, I just kept perfecting what I was good at. Like, I was just always busy. Like, I never was the type of player that was, kind of thinking with my brain as much, in the sense that I wasn't thinking as much tactically. I was just thinking more, this is kind of a statement I need to be careful with. Of course I was thinking tactically because I was thinking of where I need to run, where the space is, identifying where I need to penetrate and the right times, make those runs down the channels, or make the runs like a diagonal run behind the back four. So of course it's tactical, of course, but more from a physical standpoint. I was thinking more of like, I need to stay busy because I can't let these big guys get a hold of me and grab me and bully me. So I need to stay busy. So basically, my advice would just really be, like, for all the young footballers and aspiring pros, just keep getting better at what you're good at. And obviously you can work on your weaknesses, but, like, for example, specifically height, like you emphasized, like, that's nothing that you can control. That's just your biological development will determine how tall you are. I don't think that it's always the smartest thing to just go hit the gym and just become swollen, really strong and this and that. Like, sometimes you are probably a little bit better if you're maybe a little bit lighter on your feet, you're a little bit more dynamic, a little more agile. But in reality, I think that just really perfect what you're good at. Like, for me, it was finishing. Like, I mean, for me, what I was doing, really, I was getting the ball in around the 6 and around the 18. I was just shooting. I mean, I was taking shots from inside the 6. I was taking shots across the body. I was taking shots left-footed. I was taking, back to goal. Like, outside of the wrist, finish. I was just doing all that because that's what I could control. And that's what I was good at. And while I was in college, that's really where I excelled, and that's really where that next level hit, because I grew. So all of that work that I put in before manifested during that time period that once I grew, I took my game to the next level. And now that doesn't mean that everyone will grow, but if you are a late bloomer, just don't focus on your height. There are so many aspects of the game that you can work on, because like I just stated at the beginning of this, is like, look at Messi. Like, if he would have focused on his physical self, he would have never been who he is. He focused on his special ability and intellect, and he just perfected that. And of course, being in an environment where he was with Barcelona, with having top of the line coaches, top of the line teammates, his tools just became sharper and sharper and sharper, and didn't let his size get in the way. So for all, I guess, to abbreviate, all the kids that are having, I guess, problems, or I guess kind of like, you know, insecurities about their size, don't let that stop you. Really just focus on the things that you can control. And if for example, if you're fast, that's an amazing tool. Speed is really important in today's game. So if you're small and agile and your acceleration is there, and you got the first 3 to 4 yards on a center back that's 6'3", that's already a really important aspect of the game. Separation speed.
That's everything. That's what creates chances.
That's right, exactly. That's what creates chances, is that millisecond, half a second, 1 second difference between, you know, getting to the ball first. And if you're, for example, if you're fast, focus on the tactical aspect. Focus on, where's the space? Where do I run? How do I run? The timing with my teammates. Study the game. That's really my best advice if you're fast, because you don't want to be a train track player. You don't want to be a fullback or a winger or a center forward, center striker or something, and just be very predictable. Because if you're doing a monotonous, like very monotone rhythm, and you know, you become predictable and very easy defendable. So if you're constantly busy, you're constantly looking for the space in behind, you're constantly looking for the space in front. Center backs and center midfielders, they just hate having to leave their position and expose any type of space. So just really pick out a player that you think you are similar to, and try to replicate that as well. I think that's a good tip that could help a young player. That definitely would they could identify in that role.
100%.
Like they could identify in, hey, like for example, wingers traditionally, like in the modern game, like left or right wingers, dependent on what style. If they're inverted winger, meaning that if you're a left winger, you're right footed and you cut inside when you shoot with your right, or if you're an inverted left winger and you're a right winger and you're inverted and you come into your left, shoot with your left. There's great examples on the top level of these players. Like for example, Robin was probably one of the best, you know, Dutch, not just Dutch players, but just players of all time to do that inverted winger role. And his counterpartner, Ribéry on the other side, I mean, they were unstoppable. I mean, you knew what they were gonna do. I mean, they were, and their size was, they were normal size. They were in between 170, 175 or something like that, like not tall. They weren't in the 1 meter 80s. They weren't in 6 foot taller. They were just in and around that average size, and they just perfected that, right? They just they were amazing to watch. So I'd say definitely study a player. Just really tactically, that's where you can get your advantage.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, some really great points. I mean, number one, you know, focusing on your strengths. I think that's huge because, you know, like you said, you know, I think there are many different types of players in the game, and you know, obviously you want to emulate certain players, you know, and in your position, but they may have different strengths than you. So, like you said, to combine both of those, find a player that you want to play like, that kind of plays similar to you, and then I think I always talk about it to players, clients, you know, people on social media. I think one of the most underrated skills for a footballer is true self-analysis, and I think that's very tough. I think true self-accountability, looking yourself in the mirror and telling yourself what you're good at and what you're bad at is huge, because you know, obviously in the modern game, you know, the goal, like you said, is obviously you need to be of the level, you know, whether you're trying to play college, whether you're trying to play on your A team, or whether you're trying to play professionally.
Mm-hmm.
But once you're at that level and you have that base and that foundation, you got to just hammer on those strengths.
Yeah.
And like you said from the very beginning, it was your separation speed that really differentiated you. And, you know, like you said, you worked on all those other aspects. And then when you really had that growth spurt in college, everything exponentially came together. So yeah, I mean, I think those are some great insights, and yeah, I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, of course.